This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
Lots of reaction in the investment markets as to Donald Trump's big joint speech last night in Congress, including the increased possibility of maybe a rate hike.
But there's one financial issue that just keeps on being ignored despite this latest shocking development. With more on this, let's bring in Michael Campbell, host of Canada's top-rated financial show, Money Talks.
Mike, let's start with the market reaction to the Trump speech last night and the latest on these interest rates. They look like they're sort of just sitting sort of pretty at the moment.
Yeah, well, you look at that Dow getting above 21,000 for the first time. Obviously, I know that the majority of media commentators don't seem to like Mr. Trump, but clearly investors have. Right from the get-go, right from the November 9th election, we've seen this string of record highs continue. So the speech is within a context of an upward-moving market. So I don't know how much we can attribute directly to the speech. That's a bit of a reach. But obviously he did not say anything yesterday that discouraged from the economic or investment side of things. And presto, you've got this record high again, on the Dow. I mean, the market, though, just seems to want to go up. Interest rates is the interesting one, though, Drex. On Friday I was checking out, and there was, the market was saying there's about a 40% probability of a rate hike by the Federal Reserve, coming up. Well, in March. Well, you know what? That doubled. Now there's an 80% chance of a rate hike by the Federal Reserve in March. We saw the bond market react accordingly. That's a big change in sentiment. And also, it's the first time that, again, the probabilities coming out of the bond market suggest that there's going to be 3 rate hikes this year, not just 2. We'll see how that plays out, but I was really noted this huge jump. Now, you got to juxtapose that because we had the Bank of Canada today also holding our rates steady. They're saying there's a real high level of uncertainty out there, so they're not moving our rates. But presto, the difference is just like at a bank, if your bank's offering me a better rate than my bank, money goes to you. So we saw that happen today with the Canadian dollar, money moving into the States. The dollar fell under 75 cents, but it's all related that way.
Okay, let's switch to the pension story because you've been sounding the alarm about coming pension crisis for a long time now, and judging from recent problems in Dallas and New York, the problem might be closer than we think?
Yeah, I think it is, because I think this is huge. This is going to threaten, I think, social stability. I think it's going to fuel some, if we think we've had protests or social unrest to boot, I think it's going to get much worse. I mean, try taking somebody's pension away and see how well that goes over. And it's also the financial stability. But, think about this. Just yesterday, the New York Teamsters Road Carriers Local 707 Pension Fund, well, it became the first pension in the U.S. to run out of money. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. The government agency in charge of pension has to step in. But here's the other thing. Everybody says, well, what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what's happened already. They're cutting the pension payouts in half. So you're somebody who's worked, all your adult life. You've been counting on this pension. Well, presto, now you get half of what you thought you'd get. Jeez. That's where the problem starts. And it's not only there. You've got the Pension Rights Center estimates that nearly 1 million working and retired Americans are covered by a pension plan that's in imminent danger of insolvency. So, wow, it's a big deal.
So there's more than just one of these pension funds in trouble here? Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, well, I think we've got all these hints. I've been sort of Drex, that lonely guy yelling, we've got a pension problem, and nobody cares. But we saw it bankrupted Detroit. It bankrupted Stockton, California. It's bankrupted Puerto Rico. And then this past couple of months, I've been chronicling what's happened down in Dallas with their police and firemen's pension. Well, it ran into big problems over the last 12 months or so, and it's a great example. People say, well, what's going to happen when this hits? Because there's going to be a lot more of this stuff. Well, first of all, the taxpayers, that's a public sector pension, so taxpayers are going to be on the hook big time. In Dallas, they're saying we've got to jack up the contribution rate from taxpayers to 35.5% from 27%. Plus, they got to throw in $11 million extra per year. The total plan is going to cost taxpayers about $22 million per year. But think about the retirees. Well, they've just had their retirement age changed from 55 to 58. Their contributions to that plan have gone up from 8% of their salary to 13.5%. They don't have cost of living increases in that pension right now. Dallas's credit rating has been, downgraded. It's not a pretty picture, and there are absolute consequences to these things, once the reality hits. And it's going to be some combination anywhere. You're going to raise the retirement age, you can't collect as soon. You're going to reduce the payouts rather. Maybe you'll increase the contributions from taxpayers. But it's not just, Dallas just gave us an example. It's everybody's problem.
Okay, you're freaking us out right now. How big is the problem of these underfunded pensions?
Well, I'm glad I'm freaking you out because it's huge.
Yeah.
They're saying in the states, at the state level, it's $1.3 trillion. Now you got to add on, that's just the public sector side. Then you got to add on the private sector pension problems like we've just seen with the Teamsters. So it's a big deal.
Mike, how did the government pensions at the state and municipal level in the states get to be in so much trouble? Isn't there safeguards against this sort of stuff?
Well, this isn't pretty, by the way. What happened is that you get governments negotiating with public sector unions. Now, if they didn't have the cash, what they said is, why don't we top up or make your pension stuff look a lot better, when the guy's going to retire. And, so obviously the public sector union said yes. Okay, well, they didn't have money to make the contribution. So what they did instead is start estimating, we're going to make 10% on this. We're going to make 12% on this. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition. Now it's hitting the fan. That's where you're really going to see the problems. And I mentioned Detroit a moment ago, or Stockton, that you're going to get these problems where, they've made these promises, they don't have the money, and it's because they kept on forecasting higher rates of return than they got. I mean, I just look at this in California, the CalPERS is the California Public Employees Retirement System. It's monstrous. It just returned 0.6% last year, but its long-term target is 7.5%. Obviously, you do that a few years, you got a big shortfall coming. It's the same thing when you look across the board. Well, the median return for public sector pension plans in 2016 was 0.5%, basically. 0.5%. They got to get into the 8% mark. They haven't done it. So every year you're short the dough. And that's the problem there.
It's a pretty big hole anyway to get out of it?
No, there's not. This is about math. I've been saying for ages that this is math. It doesn't matter who's in power. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. Illinois has got a pension liability that comprises 280% of its total government revenues. Connecticut, 209% of total government revenues. New Jersey, 157% of total government revenues. So, I think it's too late to make that up. There's going to be these adjustments. We can't pretend it's business as usual.
Mike, let's bring it back to Canada. How's the situation here? We hear of all these problems you're telling us about down in the States. Do we have issues here in Canada as well?
Well, the first thing I'd say is you got to have this number, about 62%. 62% of Canadians don't have a workplace pension. So they're on their own. This is going to be a monstrous issue.
Well, thanks for that, Debbie Downer. Michael Campbell. Lots to chew on. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, appreciate it.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980, CKNW.